Yo, guys, what is up? And welcome back to another episode of the Game Sheets Clay podcast, off-season edition. It's your boy Gautam, my boys Matt and Chuck. We've got a full house here today. And gentlemen, since the last time we spoke, we were wondering what's going to happen. Who's on the team? Jordan Poole was on the team last time we spoke. Brandon Podzinski was not on the team. Trace Jackson Davis was not on the team. But a lot of stuff has happened since our last pod. And it was only right. It was only right, boys. We got to step on talk, break down the beginning of the offseason for the Warriors. But before we get in, man, welcome back. How we feeling, brothers?
Oh man. Uh yeah, man, today of that draft, I'm finishing up my Warriors draft guide for the Swish theory. Covered about 20 total prospects. A lot of these guys would be guys that they could take at the 19th overall pick. And then trade news hits the phone. They say picks are involved. It initially gets reported that the 19th pick is involved. And I had just finished prospect like 18 out of 20 on this guide. And fellas, I was ready to just hop in the bath with my toaster and just get it over with because I was just like, there's no way. I just spent 2 days writing this whole thing, and then they trade it for my mortal enemy. Uh, and thank God it turns out that it's just a future swap. So we get to see some draft picks. In fact, twice as many as we expected. But whoo, I'm not, that was a whirlwind of emotions last week. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm actually glad we had also Gotham doing good, man. Thank you for asking. Listen, I'm glad we had a full week, guys, or full like 3 to 4 days. I'm saying that knowing that I'm the cause of this taking so goddamn long to get back on the mic, but I'm glad we had some extra time to adjust to this. We're gonna get into just like specifics about the Chris Paul stuff and the draft, but overall, been a pretty good week. I'll take it. And that pick, like you mentioned, Chuck, first reported, I think, by Jake Fisher that it was this year's pick, and I was stunned. I was just in disbelief, actually, and pretty quickly refuted that it was just a top 20 protected pick later on. So, hey, the Dubs' future is hinging on Chris Paul's hamstrings, which is not where you always want to be. But you know what? I trust those hamstrings more than I trust Jordan Poole's decision making. So here we are, guys.
Kid's already out of town, man. Why are you taking shots still? No, I'm kidding.
There are more to come, man. That's just the beginning.
That's totally fair. No, I'm with you. I think during that draft day, it was people were just obviously they made the move, and everybody was so like down about it, and I was too. Like, and it was strictly because it was Chris Paul. You've seen this guy, Lob City. Beat us in 2014, sent him packing for the better part of a decade. Like this is just one of those. It's like the same thing if like a LeBron James came over. It's like, basketball wise, you see the fit, but like, come on, like the vibes are just not there. But I think, and people were talking about like, oh, this is like the worst draft day in Warriors history. I was like, bro, literally 2 years ago we drafted Wiseman and Clay tore his Achilles. So like it was not. We've had worse outcomes happen on a draft day. So all being said, I think that in the short term the Warriors got better. Getting Chris Paul. Obviously you get an aging point guard, but you replace Jordan Poole with a guy that can you really hold down your second unit. And, I know there are reports coming out of Chris Paul, maybe being a starter or whatever it is. I highly doubt that's going to be the case. I think that, you have a starting five that was the highest net rating in the league last season when they all played. Obviously, Wiggins missed a lot of time. Steph was out. So a lot more guys. Jordan Poole shorted a lot of that load to, get us there. But having a guy like Chris Paul just kind of reminds me at least of kind of when Sean Livingston was our backup point guard, where obviously Livingston was 6'7", was obviously a better defender than Chris Paul is, but having a guy that can slow it down and really run the offense, and with a bunch of young guys like Moody, Kuminga, I think Clay is going to do really well playing next to Chris Paul. So it really just changes up the style of which the second unit is going to look like. And last season the second unit was really up and down. They were either when they were playing well, we were able to win some games, but a lot of the times it was very, very chaotic, turnovers, like you said, decision-making issues, and a lot of young guys. So having a guy in Chris Paul that's 38 and, is going to I'm assuming he's going to be taking a much significantly less role, 20, 25 minutes, whatever it is. But to get a guy like that of his caliber to add to this point guard kind of lineup that you have with Steph Curry out there, I think that they made a move to get better in the short term. I think you heard Steph and Clay talk about it, that, we know Chris Paul can help us win now. And I think that's exactly where it's at. The roster still has to be filled out, but I think the first big move of the Mike Dunleavy era was a good one for going all in on the core.
Hey, Chuck, so walk me through where you were with this trade, the day it went down, and where you're at now. And you can include the emotional aspect if you want to bring up any similar toaster references. I'm nothing like a good toaster, the bathtub jokes, so more of those, please. But where were you last week? Where are you now, dude?
Yeah, so that's a tough one. There was definitely some processing of grief. There was denial. There was bargaining, both internally, externally. There were a lot of different things going on. But after the sort of emotions of picturing, oh my God, Draymond Green and Chris Paul are going to be on a basketball team together, that definitely gave me a lot of concern. But on like so much of this on paper, now, obviously these two could like step into the octagon for a cage match by like game 30 and everything falls apart chemistry wise and none of this matters. But on paper, I think Paul, we'll get more into the haul of the trade in a bit, but I think what Paul does is an excellent job of like filling multiple problems for them from last year's team, while getting an upgrade at the same time. So one of those problems being health. Steph Curry's going to miss his games. Klay Thompson's going to miss games sometimes. So you need a viable alternative that can jump into that starting lineup and not completely sink like their ball movement, their catch and shoot ability. And now they have that. Obviously, Chris isn't the healthiest at this stage of his career, but this is going to be like by far the lowest usage he's going to have of his career. So I mean, maybe usage rate while he's on the floor will still be high, but he'll be playing less and less minutes. So I think you can hope that he can conserve his legs a little bit. But what this also does, I think, they did trade out a couple of roster spots, but I think what they did really shows kind of their plan for this bench unit. We still have free agency upcoming. There's still guys they can go after. But right now you have Moody, Kuminga, you have Pods, you have Trace Jackson Davis. You have all of these young guys who are potentially looking for roles. And who better to organize a group of young guys that don't really know how they fit offensively than Chris Paul? Like, if the majority of the minutes are going to come with him, he's going to be playing a much more predictable style of offense with like pick and roll heavy stuff. You'll see less of the motion. Like Kerr, obviously Kerr's going to try to run some normal Warriors things, but it's Chris Paul. Like you can't take him out of the pick and roll. He's been doing this for 15 years. He's going to keep doing it. You just have to do it with him. And I think a lot of the younger guys on the bench are really going to thrive with that, especially during the regular season. Get them in a more normal rhythm. They're still going to have a lot of the motion infused on the perimeter, a lot of cutting. That's going to be really good for Jonathan Kuminga. You got a guy with eyes in the back, sides, top of his head. I mean, Chris Paul is just ridiculous in terms of his court vision. So if you cut, you get open, he will find you. The shooters will be open. So I think that does a really good job at, sort of addressing some of their health concerns by giving a viable backup at the guard spots, one who can handle the ball, and it really sort of brings an organization to the bench that they didn't have last year because, they tried to make it work with Poole as sort of this primary scoring option, but he's not a primary playmaker. And if he's the primary, ball mover that you have to rely on, things are going to get ugly pretty quickly. And now they've just added one of the best passers in the whole league. So I'd say that's really huge for the stock of all of their young guys.
Yeah, I feel Chuck, that was awesome. That needs to be clipped ASAP and put on the Twitterverse. That was great. Yeah, I'm really excited about the move actually. And I mean, again, it's all contingent on health, but like what these days with the Warriors is not contingent on health. I am really glad you brought up Draymond early because I just want to point out that Draymond called Kevin Durant one of the 15 greatest players of all time a bitch while they're on the same team. He punched their 23-year-old guard in the face after they won a title. So I don't know what that means for his relationship with Chris Paul after all the battles they've had. Maybe at this point it's all, water under the bridge. Who knows? That's going to be interesting to watch all year. But I do actually think he's kind of perfect for what this team needs right now. And that's, again, if he's literally just only as healthy as last year, only as good as last year, I should say. He needs to be healthier than last year, obviously. But if he's 14-6 off the bench, 16-7 off the bench, still getting to the mid-range, finding cutters, like you said, Chuck, and Kerr needs to, I don't think he won't. Again, most of us who have been watching this team for a long time have seen that traditionally when this team has won titles outside of with Jordan Poole, their second unit just doesn't play the same way as the starters. They're a slow, beat the shit out of other team group. I don't think this group is going to be that necessarily. I think this group actually has more offensive talent than the Livingston, Iguodala, David Wests of the world. Not to say those guys weren't great, and not to say I would not kill for late stage David West right now. My God, that'd be fantastic. But no, I just think he's going to be perfect for this group. And I think for all the Kerr dreams of Kuminga being Sean Marion, Chris Paul is not Steve Nash. They're not the same type of point guard, but they're both masters in the pick and roll. Sean Marion was one of the greatest cutters we've ever seen. And I think if they can develop anything close to that kind of connection, we're going to see Kuminga have the best season of his career. And he kind of needs to be honest, because this team needs the rim pressure Kuminga brings. He's the only guy on the team, especially with Poole gone, who really brings that. And I feel like having Chris Paul there is going to bring out the best in him, bring out the best in Moody. And it just feels like, again, there's a group of Twitter and Warriors fandom that when this happened, I was like, well, the group who hates everything is definitely going to hate this one because it's tough. He's 38, right? He is. He's old. He's old as shit. He gets hurt every year. But like you said, 25 minutes a game off the bench, stagger him and Steph. I think we're going to see Gautam. You said it earlier, man. I think a lot of him and Clay on the floor together with a lot of the young guys. I think we'll see Steph and Draymond together as much or more than ever. With this being said, so overall, I love it. I do want to get your guys' thoughts. I mentioned this the other day in our little Game 6 text thread that Gautam revealed the name of to be Fuck Dylan Brooks, I think a couple months ago. So well done, Gautam. Yeah, there he is. But the only thing I'm curious about is the fit with Chris Paul and Draymond. Just because I feel, again, people aren't necessarily going to love this. Chris Paul can play off the ball a little bit, and I expect his three-point shot to get a lot better when his minutes load is a lot less. The guy's like a 37 or 38% three-point shooter for his career. He can shoot the ball. I don't know what this is a weird narrative like Chris Paul can't shoot going around. Like he had a down season last year. That's fine. The guy can. This is Chris Paul. He can shoot a basketball. I'm not too worried about it. I am just really curious to see when he and Draymond are on the floor, maybe to close games, maybe for a few minutes here and there. What is Draymond doing? Are we going to see Draymond just off ball cutting, connective tissue maestro here? What's going on with those two in your mind? That's the only, as far as fit goes, that's the only kind of duo dynamics I'm curious about.
At least for me, off the top of my head, I think the one thing, like you can run a Draymond, Chris Paul pick and roll, but this is where getting that rim threat, right? And maybe it's Trace Jackson Davis, but a guy where you have a Chris Paul Draymond pick and roll, you hit Draymond, and then Draymond hits him for the lob. You get another shooter. So I think getting Chris Paul itself, I think it sets the stage for what this roster can kind of be shaped into. I don't think they have the players for it yet. Chuck, I know you're super high on Trace Jackson Davis. Definitely want to hear your thoughts on him as we go deeper into the rookies and as we go on through this episode. But I definitely see the fit. I think for two of the highest basketball IQ players in the league, in Chris Paul and Draymond, what I think that they're going to be able to play off of each other. I think that the fact that Steph and Clay have spoken out, and I'm sure Draymond is even in his clips where he's talked about Chris Paul, like they've acknowledged how much of a winner he is and like the high basketball IQ that the guy has. So I have no doubt that figure it out. I think Draymond obviously but that's been the case for Draymond always, to be more of an offensive threat, whether that's, going for layups or finding a way to, knock down some shots. But I think that Chris Paul Draymond pick and roll, if you can add a rim threat and get another shooter, that there's a decent chunk of your second unit right there with, as Draymond played in it last season. We saw him kind of being that quarterback of the second unit. So kind of mixing and matching with, what this team has to offer. But guys like GP2, Kuminga, Trace Jackson Davis, you've got decent guys that can be lob threats or rim threats for that Chris Paul kind of a dynamic. So just kind of filling out the roster, but I think that you're in a better position of knowing what you need now to have a complete roster with Chris Paul on the team than you did with Jordan Poole.
Yeah, so I think what's going to be interesting to me is, like you said, the dynamic between CP3 and Draymond on the floor. But he's going to be really interesting too, because I think for a lot of reasons, it's going to be hard to get him on the floor with the starting unit. So I'm not sure how much that comes into play. And I think a lot of it is because of those concerns. Like, he's not really a big plus defensively at this point in his career. You could definitely make an argument that he's a negative. He's still like a pretty good floor spacer, but he's inconsistent in terms of actually making the shots, actually taking the shots, which has always been sort of a frustrating calling card. And we know that just for whatever reason, he does not have the juice in the playoffs. So I think really what this is more about is just kind of raising the ceiling of this bench unit a lot more, giving them an option that they can put in, when Steph needs to take breaks. But I think, we'll kind of see. Yeah, that's what's really interesting to me too, is when you get into the free agent targets, like, are they going to try to pair a big that they can run that 1-5 pick and roll with, so Draymond doesn't have to be off the ball? Like, if you want to keep the normal starting unit and you get a backup center that can rim run, you swap out Looney and Steph earliest of those three guys. You can run some real nasty stuff if there's 1-5 with Clay, Wiggins, and Draymond off the ball. Chris Paul is going to find shooters. They're going to have to defend lobs with two men, or else he's going to find the gap. So, yeah, I think this is sort of a move that they've done, assuming that some other pieces are going to fall into place in terms of the depth.
You see, I'm kind of more or less there. I also don't expect them to play a whole lot together, just because, especially offensively, as far as what they're doing on the court right now, they're going to be occupying somewhat of a similar role, and that's taking care of everybody else, right? So we'll see. I think again, I do expect them, however, to close with those five guys, with their best five players, which they haven't been able to do in a long time. Which, again, when you can't close with your five, quote unquote best five players, it's when you kind of run into trouble in the playoffs, right? And the Warriors last year couldn't play their best five guys because they didn't really fit. And Jordan Poole, I think, probably, again, talent-wise, one of their best five last year, couldn't get him on the floor. So I honestly, assuming Chris Paul is on this team for the duration of the season, I'd be super surprised to see them going in a different direction at the end of games. And again, I know there's a lot of Chris Paul doesn't defend stuff right now too. He's not Chris Paul of 2014. Wink, wink at Steph. But again, we talked about this a little bit too. By sheer know-how, the guy's a genius. By sheer effort, by just smarts. If Jordan Poole was I'm going to give him a 1 on the defensive scale. Chris Paul right now is still 6. He's still a 6 or a 7. I think it's that big of a jump just because you know what you're doing. And you can say, hey, that's having Steph and Chris Paul in your backcourt might be a tough look. I expect Clay to be better this year. I expect Wiggins to still be very good this year. I expect Looney and Draymond to be around what they were last year, which was really goddamn good. So I think they have enough to cover up for it. And I do expect those guys, those five guys, to generally close games, assuming they're all playing.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to look at it from the Chris Paul defense thing. I think everybody's been making it, Jordan Poole, was the guy, that's who you're replacing. And how many times have we fucking complained about the effort or whatever it was defensively? At least for Chris Paul, yeah, he's getting older. I feel like the effort has never been in question in terms of, on the defensive side of the floor. So if anything, like you went from, worse to just bad. So I think the defensive stuff will work its stuff out. Granted that, they make the right moves on the roster, but how do you guys feel that the roster has to be filled out now that you have, your backup point guard, and your second unit or your bench unit, at least right now with Kuminga, GP2, Chris Paul, and the two rookies. So where are you guys feeling? Where are the holes in this roster? How do you go about filling this out? And yeah, what's the icing on the cake to fill this out?
Yeah, let me just I kind of put together my ideal list. Number one, as always, you could probably have this as number one every offseason, a backup center, who's preferably not 25 years old or younger. I love TJD. I love the value they got for him. We'll talk more about him as a prospect, but they need to get a serious, just a serious plan back there. If it's Kevin Love, if it's Mason Plumlee, I mean, hell, you could even go for like Mike Muscala. I think can opt out and be a free agent. Georges Niang, like someone who can shoot at least. Just anything that's a real plan back
Big
there.
body.
I think this is a class that's going to be pretty deep on some like minimum level wing guys. You have the Torrey Craigs of the world, Jay Crowder. You have Josh Richardson, who I think would be a pretty good fit as kind of that off-ball shooter next to Chris Paul, guy who can play a little defense. I think kind of that off-ball wing, someone that can take away Moody and Kuminga's minutes if necessary, is going to be really important. You can't go into the season without an alternative to those two. And then I think, as much as we've seen for like kind of the general hype around pods, I think it would be good for them to add another guard into this room, because there are going to be overlap times when Steph Curry and Chris Paul both cannot play, and you need someone who can legitimately initiate, pass the ball, step into that role. So I think that's somewhere else they should look, is having kind of that real third string point guard back there, considering the age and health of those two.
Before I get to my thoughts there, and Chuck, that's going to be more. I think we'll probably all play pretty similar ideas for the most part. Do we feel confident that this is kind of the year with Steve Kerr? Is Steve Kerr still going to have the young guy bias against probably not so much Moody, but who knows, Moody and Kuminga? Is that going to be done this year, or do you think those guys get some pretty good run, especially now that Chris Paul is involved? What are you expecting from those two this year in terms of playing time, in terms of production, in terms of the leash Kerr gives them? Because honestly, in my opinion, I think they need all those things. I think they need to back up big. I think for every season that Looney fucking plays 82 games, he should get a statue. I think he should have 2 statues now, because this is insane. But I just think that Moody and Kuminga just need to be good. Like, Moody needs to be in my opinion, a close to, if not double-digit scorer off the bench this year. Kuminga needs to really pop for the first time. And I don't see them getting a wing better than either of those two guys, or it's more talented at least than either of those two guys right now. And anything they get around their spots, in my opinion, should be a vet who is willing to step in, like you said, Chuck, if things aren't going well, but shouldn't be their primary option. So how do you see those two guys being used this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's year 3. Like this 2 timeline thing has been, for whatever bias you want to say Steve Kerr has against young guys. They've been in the system now for 2 years. They've been on a championship run. They've been on a team that hasn't panned out in last year's team. So I think the expectation is quite clear in terms of what they have to do to get out of the court. And I think Moody kind of showed that towards the end of the season. I think that Lakers series, you could argue he was probably one of the best guys off the bench, if not, your go-to reserve. But specifically,
maybe their best guy. Maybe their best guy off the bench. DiVincenzo fell apart. Jordan Poole had nails in his eyeballs. So
yeah, no, like Moody felt like, even towards the end of that regular season when he started getting minutes, he kind of got out of that rut. So it felt like he was kind of starting to do the right things and working his way into the rotation. But for Kuminga, man, like for all the offseason talk of, I want a bigger role. I want to, do whatever. They've traded Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, Patrick Baldwin, whoever you want to say, and they've kept these two guys. So now it's on you guys to come out and perform. Like this team last year depended on these young guys to take that next step. It's even more so because the Warriors are only working with vet minimums right now, so you don't know who you're going to be able to get. If you're able to get a backup wing or whoever, whatever it is that can kind of supplement those minutes, an Anthony Lamb type or whatever that took over minutes from these guys last year, then more power to you. But you're going in with the idea that Kuminga and Moody have to take that next step this year. So I don't know if Kerr has a chance, if he even has an option to play him or not. Because you're really gonna have to lean on the guys that you drafted for this specific moment. They were projects when you were drafted them. This is year 3. Like this is the time where they have to make that next step. So if not, then you got to trade them. If they're on the roster going into training camp or whatever it is at the start of the season, to me that shows that all right, we believe that these guys can take that next step. If not, you really have to have a serious conversation about, like you did with Jordan Poole. Can they help us win right now? So I think that's just where the think track should be at. But to be fair, we have been all believers in Kuminga, and I think I agree with you, man. I think this is the year that he does pop off, and he looks good so far with what you've seen on the off season workout and stuff.
Yeah, no, he's 7'2" now.
Yeah, exactly.
There it is.
This is truth, of course. Everything Andre Iguodala says is incredibly serious. He never jokes. But no, so like I completely agree with you that you should be taking the bet that one of Kuminga or Moody, hopefully both, can step forward into that rotation spot. But you got to go forward with a contingency plan. And as much as I love, they have like probably 3 roster spots to work with, considering they never want to use the 15th spot. If they do use the 15th spot, it'll probably just be Iggy playing 5 games again. So really, in my mind, you have maybe add a backup guard, add another wing, add another big, just kind of round out some depth at each position. And that gives you 14. Would I love to see a guy like Lester Quinones, who had an amazing season in the G League, promoted to the team? Yes, but I don't know if you can add an unknown behind another unknown again, if that makes sense. I love taking the bets on the upside, but you can't just swing forward again and again. At some point, you just have to add known quantities to this team.
So yeah, I fully agree with that. I think one of the benefits the Warriors have is 3 two-way spots this year. So I fully expect us to see around 17 guys on the bench on an even night. I agree, Chuck. They're probably not filling that 15th spot. They're probably going to have 14 guys, 3 two-way guys. I forget which of the athletic reporters it was, but one of them was talking about just kind of an expectation that Quinones is around this year quite a bit. So that's something to look forward to. Yeah, I just think they need a big, they need a backup big. Like I said, you can't be expecting Looney to play 82 anymore. No matter what the stakes are. I like Dwight Powell for that. I like Mason Plumlee for that. Muscala would be, again, stretch big, get something out there to create some space. Now, as far as guards go, is Ty Jerome proven enough to you? Because I'm not gonna lie, I'm in. Bring Ty back to San Francisco, man, because I don't know if we recall, that guy was in meetings with Draymond and Clay this year about the future of our Golden State Warriors. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Poole's departure was in part due to Ty Jerome's machinations, man. That guy was obviously self-serving. It's not a coincidence that he's talking to Dre and to Clay. All of a sudden, Jordan Poole's gone. Ty Jerome was a plus player last year, 50, 40, 90 guy, 2-way contract. I'm not saying move the needle, but again, we know that guy can play basketball. At the very least, he can play, and he's a good decision maker, and he can shoot the hell out of the rock. What do you guys think about our guy Ty coming back?
Sign me up, man. He's a Virginia dude, played for Tony Bennett. I'm so here for it. That's bring him back. Ty was awesome. I still won't forget he had that weird, I don't know what game it was, but he had that 35-foot just buzzer beater against someone and just kind of let the crowd know about it. Just great vibes. I thought Ty was kind of what you look for in a backup point guard too. Like he was able to run the offense, slowed it down. Really played. It was a good compliment to Jordan Poole. The chaotic nature of the way JP used to play or does play. I mean, I think especially when you have a team that has Steph and Chris Paul, to have a guy like Ty Jerome who came in last year and really made his mark in the games he did play. So I'm all for the Ty Jerome reunion. Granted, they fill out the roster with the necessary. I think backup point guard is the last on my wish list, to be honest. But if they do have the spot for it, I would love to see Ty Jerome in a Warriors uniform.
So here's why it's not last for me. 73. You know what that number is?
2016 wins, man.
Well, that too. It's also Steph Curry and Chris Paul's combined age. So those two guys are going to need some backup minutes, man. There's going to be some time that's missed, all right? Maybe they missed 9 games total. That's fantastic. But I'm just saying, we need that backup point guard's got to be available, man. So if that's Ty Jerome, whoever it is, they need somebody who can step in and actually not be Nico Mannion or the legend Brad Cockamaker and somebody like that. What do you guys think of a guy like Gallinari? His name's been tossed around. You think he was involved in that Marcus Smart Porzingis trade? I think he got sent to Washington with an expectation for a buyout. Is that the kind of guy who 12th, 13th man you feel good about?
Totally. I mean, I personally I think Gallo's had some injuries, and I think he's just coming off a torn ACL. I think this might have been the second time he's torn it. So that type of player, yes. The guys like I've been kind of had my eye on was I really like Torrey Craig, Yuta Watanabe. I think on from the Brooklyn Nets. Dude can shoot. He's 6'7", 6'8". But yeah, like that kind of a fit, like a tall, stretch 3-4 guy. You can kind of just have some more length. Can spread the floor, can defend. So I gotta say, like Gallo, yes, if he hadn't torn his ACL last year. And again, yes for a vet min, but yeah, I'm sure there's options out there though. There's a lot of names floating around.
Yeah, I like guys like Gallo, and here's why. He is the epitome of vet. If Moody is sucking, if Kuminga is sucking, get him in there, but he's not so good. I don't think right now that Kerr is gonna, put blindfolds on Moody and Kuminga and drop them off in the desert type thing. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's a good chance that they actually are like a good backup option to have for 3 to 4 games. Step in, spot minutes here or there. Chuck, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's right. Like you said, in that good territory of he's not good enough to demand minutes anymore, but he's definitely good enough to supplant the other guys that they have if they're not performing, because really good shooter. He's decent in the post. He can rebound, like gives them some extra size, especially at the 4 spot and shooting. So like that I think would be a really good fit. Like I think guys like that, they're going to need one quality like stationary 3-point shooter on the wings, and they don't have that right now. Like Moody could be that guy, but that requires Kerr to like trust him, and I don't know if that's going to happen. So I think they need to add some kind of wing, whether it's more of like an off-ball guard, a 2-3 type, or more like a stretch big, just someone who can space the floor off pick and roll.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think Watanabe's name's gotten tossed out a lot. That guy shot the absolute piss out of the ball last year. I don't expect him to be available for the minimum. I think supposedly he's pretty close to KD. I know KD was kind of singing his praises most of their time in Brooklyn together. So I would guess he's a son. But that's kind of the guy you'd like out there, just an absolute sniper. Another guard I didn't realize was a free agent that I like a lot, just as a 3rd or 4th guard, Javon Carter from Milwaukee. Guy's an absolute ball hawk. Just gets after it. Doesn't like to shoot the ball a lot, but when he does, he's not horrible. But he's a point guard. He's kind of like he's a better defensive Ty Jerome in my mind. Probably not as good of a shooter, but I like that idea a lot. Any other targets off the top of your head? And I'm sure we'll do another one of these by next Wednesday when the Warriors probably haven't signed a single fucking person. So that'll be fun. But Chuck, do you have anybody else in mind?
Yeah, so I kind of have I think there would be some interesting kind of other guard targets they could go with if they do want to prioritize like having a bigger lineup, maybe using Gary Payton on some bigger matchups. But I think there would be kind of some fun guys here, like Josh Okogie is a really, really good wing defender off the bench. Um, a guy who fits that sort of mentality. I mean, we really saw it with that Lakers team. If he's in their price range, they should absolutely be calling Dennis Schrader, say, hey, buddy, you want to come like run this bench again with Chris Paul, bring it back to that OKC team where it's just defense, playmaking, mid-range shooting. That like I think that would be a fun one for them to poke around to. Another guy too, where it's like, what, if we're patching up old bad blood and kind of getting guys together, let's let's take a look at Austin Rivers. The guy still nails defensively. He can still hit a shot. He's a real pro rotation player. I think that would be some really good depth if Dante's kind of going out the door.
Let's just get all the guys that the Warriors have signed over this dynasty. Chris Paul, Austin Rivers, shit, LeBron, whenever you want to hop
Mm-hmm.
on,
Yeah,
I actually
I
love that
hear
Rivers idea.
Damian Lillard is considering
literally,
running from the.
I don't, I, that, I mean, I don't want to,
I
I
know
don't want to
I'm
hear
stopping this
anything.
now. I don't want to talk about Dame. I don't want to hear about Dame. I don't want to even reference Dame.
You're right. No,
He's
you're
either
right.
traded
It's
or he fills
Groundhog's
out the,
Day.
yeah.
We're on year 3 of this. Whatever happens, I hope the guy finds whatever he's looking for. I'm not talking Dame Lillard, guys. I'm sorry. I'm shutting that one down right now. Chuck, I do love the Schroeder idea, and I love the Rivers idea. That's a guy that can kind of scale up a little bit as a defender too. If push comes to shove, and I like that a lot. I don't know what he shot last year, but I know he's generally a pretty solid shooter, so I like that for him too. Again, he's a smart player. I think he's year 9 or 10 now in the league. He's been around. He's a journeyman. He understands basketball. He's played on a lot of good teams, whether it's those good Clippers teams. He's played with Jokic. I think he'd be a really helpful guy to have on this bench. Actually, Chuck, I love that one.
Are we,
And he would be
but how are we feeling otherwise? Are the Warriors done making any moves? Are Kuminga and Moody going to be on this team, or do you see them making a trade? I don't. I know the new CBA has been released, and the second apron or whatever. I still don't understand it fully, but I know that the cutting the cost is something that the Warriors are actively looking to do. They've got a couple other big contracts. Obviously, Clay's making 40 something $million this year, last year of his deal, but his expiring contract. I would not want to entertain any Clay trades, but do you think they have the balls to make that kind of a move, or is this what we're rocking with for just kind of fringe free agency, vet mins, and this is the squad for 2023?
Yeah, I kind of get the feeling like, there were some heavy talks about trading him for 7th pick, trading Kuminga in this case. Apparently kind of the intel was going around there was Indiana was thinking about doing the trade if they couldn't get Jarris Walker, who they really, really wanted to get. But then, they still able to trade back with Washington, get the pick. They just really wanted that big defensive wing. I just kind of feel like, if they would have been gone, they would have been gone on draft night. And they were close. That doesn't mean they can't reignite talks if free agency doesn't break a team's way, or other teams start kind of reevaluating things. We've seen some teams, it kind of looks like, are going to have some pretty drastic shakeups in free agency. So, maybe there's some fallout. Other guys have to get moved. So you never know, but I'd say it's probably like 80-20 right now that both guys are on the roster.
Yeah, I would guess. First of all, Clay's not going anywhere.
Yeah,
That would have
that's not
surprised
gonna
me. Even if Poole didn't get moved, I think that Kerr is too attached. I think Steph would I don't know what Steph would do, but it wouldn't be long. His time in Golden State would not be long. I don't think. I think Draymond might be reconsidering his position if that were to happen. So no, I think Clay is good. I'm glad Clay is safe. I think he's going to have a really good season this year. I'm excited to watch him. But no, I mostly agree. I think this team mostly is what it is, and there is got to be a lot of weight on Kuminga and Moody's shoulders. I'm not gonna lie. I also just think Kerr just sees Moody and just has absolute hard eyes whenever he sees him. So I don't think Moody's going anywhere ever. I don't think I've even seen Moody mention any trade talks. Obviously, Kuminga for 7 would have been interesting, especially if a guy like Turner comes back with that, some kind of cool deal. Didn't happen. We got a guy who's about 11 inches shorter than Turner instead. I'm excited for it though, like we all said. But no, I think this is the roster. I think they probably are done making as far as trades goes. I'd be surprised if anything else happened. I don't think it happens because his contract is really good. But I am a little bit curious about Gary Payton's role in this team long term. And I think they all love Gary. I think they should. Again, we all are big GP2 fans. I think that, again, there's maybe 2 guys who are as good or better than him as guard and perimeter defenders in the league. But their options for moving money are pretty few and far between. They're not going to trade Looney ever. So I'll just be curious to keep an eye on that one. Now, also, if they do, again, I don't think they will, but if they do move anybody, the best way for them to move money if they want to keep CP is a combination of GP, Kuminga, and Moody that gets you to around 20 million. So just keeping an eye on that in case there is anything else left in the bucket. But no, I think they're probably done.
Solid. Matt, you brought up a guy 7 inches shorter than Miles Turner. Chuck, I want to get your take, man, and Matt as well on the rooks. Brandon Pajinski. I hope I said that right.
It's Pajinski, I think.
Pajinski. Yeah. All right, and then Trace Jackson Davis. I'm not gonna lie, man. I really like both those prospects. Chuck, I know you love TJD, but kind of just watching some Pajinski highlights after he got drafted, and Pods is nice, man. He's got the ability, kind of not Jordan Poole-esque in terms of just as shifty as Jordan was, but his ability to shoot. He's got a really nice floater. I think that the offensive game is something that, especially from a shooting standpoint, he's definitely going to be able to, he's going to get some good looks, knock down some shots, playing next to Chris Paul, Steph, Clay, whoever it is, Draymond, if he's back. And a guy like Trace Jackson Davis, who is 6'8", 6'9", I want to say, just Chuck, and then
6'9",
6'9", but just an absolute athletic freak. He played 4 years in college. I think was Mike Woodson the coach at Indiana? So he's played in a basketball coach kind of, or a guy that has NBA pedigree. He's played for him. So yeah, athleticism's there. So I really think that Mike Dunleavy and crew really knocked it out of the park with the picks. I think at 19, there was talks of Chris Murray. I know that one guy that fell, Cam Whitmore was his name. Is that the guy that fell? That was another one. But watching some Pods film and trading back to get 57 for TJD, I think they made the right moves. I think these guys can definitely make an impact. You lose Jordan Poole and Dante DiVincenzo, and you add a guy like Pods next to Chris Paul, who I think can really grow in with the shooting ability on this team, and Jackson Davis, man, that's exactly the kind of a lob threat that you need. A little undersized, but I think the athleticism, he's going to be great. I think he's going to learn wonders from Draymond and Looney, and seems like he's one of those draft picks that Steve Kerr can trust. He's not 18, 19, just as a raw prospect. The guy's played 4 years of college basketball, and a dude that Steve at least has mentioned are guys that he can feel comfortable with. So what are you guys' takes on 19 and 57 from this year?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think Pods, like you said, the guy's got great shooting ability, really good step back, really good in the mid-range floater, all that kind of stuff. I think he'd be a pretty good 2-level scorer right out of the gate. Whether or not he kind of develops that rim pressure game, it's sort of, he's not like non-athletic. He's just not like a top tier athlete. When you're a top tier athlete, you got to make up for it. with a lot of craft on the dribble, and he has that. The question is just kind of, can he keep that curve ahead of NBA defenders right now? But even if he doesn't, the shooting is going to translate into an offensive role. He's got some good playmaking reads in him. He's not quite like a on-ball guy, like a true point guard, but he kind of played that off-ball role at Santa Clara, so I think he can succeed with that with the Warriors. Um, the fit I'm most excited for, and one thing too that we got to mention with Pods, the dude is like an unbelievable rebounder. He put up like
9 rebounds
center
a game, dude.
level rebounding numbers. He had like a 20% rebounding percentage, even though he's just like an average, 6'5" or so combo guard. The dude just knows where to be. It's just ridiculous watching him like hunt down a rebound. Um, and it's a little thing that I think the Warriors are definitely a team that appreciates this. Like most guys, shot goes up, you turn your head, you kind of clear your immediate area. And then, if you get the rebound, if it gets near you, great. If it does, it doesn't. Pause is just like throwing himself into that area. Like it's literally like it's like throwing a toy into like a crowd of dogs. And then there's one like golden retriever that's just like an absolute freak. And everyone's just like, all right, yeah, no, we know Lucky's gonna get it. Like he's a little weird. That's kind of how Pods is going for those rebounds, and I love it. The real fit that I'm excited for is TJD. I'm glad you brought up the size because those are really the main concerns for him. Like he's older, he's not a superior big man athlete, in like kind of the vertical explosive sense. And he's a little undersized for a center. That sounds like the exact kind of thing the Warriors can work with, because last 2 seasons they've had the number one rim defense in the league, and the majority of their minutes are going to James Wiseman, who very large, can't move. Kevon Looney, he's always listed as 6'9". I don't believe that. I think he's like maybe 6'7". He more or less has one functioning hip, and they've turned him into an unbelievable defender. And then Draymond Green is 6'6" in high heels. And maybe, like we all know he's had his issues. So like the point is that they've been turning undersized centers into rim protection for years. Like this is what they do. They can do it with a guy who's really smart, like TJD, who knows when to rotate. Especially knows how to like contest shots without sacrificing rebounding position. So he's going to be a really strong rebounder. You're not going to see him selling out for plays that he doesn't have a chance to impact. He just kind of he's very within himself defensively, which I appreciate. And running off the pick and roll, he's a really great scorer. He's got the vertical athleticism to finish lobs, but you put him in the post, you have him running dribble handoffs, you have him going out of split actions. Like the guy's passing is just really, really going to pop. His ability to find a cutter, find a shooter, get into the post, just, put a guy into the paint, put him under the rim, and just finish over the top. Like, I'm really excited for this fit. He really just kind of checks all the boxes that they're looking for offensively and defensively for big men.
Yeah, I'm gonna play the role of guy who hasn't watched a whole lot of film here, or any of these guys' games, except for I've listened to Chuck talk about these guys a little bit. I've watched a YouTube video here and there. Athletic Alchemist or Athletic Alchemy, I forget the guy's name. He's great. Watched his stuff a little bit. I'm excited, and here's mostly why. Okay, and I my impression, Chuck, and you can probably speak more on this, is Pods does have some limitations, right? He's 6'3" or so, from what I understand. His wingspan's not terribly impressive. I know that my understanding again is TJD, Trace Jackson Davis. Yes, got it. Okay, gotta get that one down. TDJ is what comes out more easily for me. My impression is not a shooter, but a hustler. Great passer, like you said. Saw some clips of him just in the post, switching the floor. It's pretty sweet. Those guys, from my impression, they just know how to play. And let's say you're 80% of an NBA athlete in Pod's case, right? You can get your team is not going to suffer for you to be on the floor for the most part. You might not you might be more Ty Jerome-esque in my mind, but you're at least going to know how to play it. And the Warriors system, that's a lot more important than your athleticism, is knowing how the system works. You can get by, especially offensively, if you know what you're doing with the ball in your hands and with the ball out of your hands, more importantly, right? And if both these guys can do that, that's good. That's fine. That's oftentimes enough for players who play with the Warriors. Looking at guys like Bielitsa, looking at Damian Lee's, looking at Juan Toscano Anderson's, that level of player, you can get by with that. So I'm just looking forward to having those guys around. I'm really curious to see if Gautam, you talked about it earlier. If Trayce Jackson Davis, yeah, there it is again. I'm getting that order right. Not Davis Jackson, Jackson Davis can get on the floor as a rim runner early on. I just don't know what this team's ever going to do as far as signing a big man goes. The classic Bob Myers line is X action is hard, signing players is hard, trading for players is hard. I'm not going to lie, Mike Dunleavy Mike Dunleavy just made more moves than Bob made in the last 4 years. And again, not that they're all going to work out. Bob is usually batting like 900, you know what I mean? But hey, I'm just excited to see guys who can play and know how to play. I really want to see if Pods can get on the floor and just score, move the ball, and be a shooter. And again, Chuck, you mentioned it. When you're a crafty ass player, and he is from all accounts very crafty. Also, shouts to my dad real quick. Grew up in San Jose, went to Santa Clara. He's ecstatic the Warriors got a Bronco on their team. I'm really excited to see this kid can grow and just be one of those guys who figures it out. Like a Ginobili. Obviously, Ginobili was probably a lot more athletic than that, but a guy who's just so crafty the ball that they can be on the floor earlier than not. And I do want to ask you, Chuck, are these guys you think can get rotation minutes this year?
So I think Dunleavy kind of right out of the gate tempered those expectations. I think they're both capable. I think probably TJD more than Pods just because of how ready-made he is for this offense. In terms of just the handoff capability, the finishing, what he can do athletically, passing. But I don't think they should go in with the expectation that both will have a role. I think ideally you sign another big man. He's kind of the backup. TJD is sort of this third string center who can step in when you need it. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if they went into the season expecting like him to be the backup. I don't think they should expect both players to have rotation spots out of the gate. Especially I think the path to Pods getting minutes is a lot tougher because, at best right now, he's the third string point guard. At best, he's maybe the third string shooting guard, probably more like fourth or fifth because of Moody and Gary Payton. So yeah, I wouldn't be counting on it. But I think both guys are ready to kind of play minutes out of the gate more than guys they've taken in the past. They usually were going for these one and done types. Pods had 2 years of experience. Trayce Jackson Davis had 4. That's way more than we're used to seeing out of their draft picks in recent years.
Do you view Pods right now being more, again, having 2 years of experience with Moody now? Do you think he's more ready for the NBA than Moody was in hindsight?
Maybe. I think more ready because of the shooting. I mean, that was the problem is, that was sort of the pitch of Moses is, yeah, he's young, but he's got this ready profile. He just has some athletic deficiencies. And that's the same thing for Pods. So, I mean, they're different prospects in terms of the usage, the frame, what their main skill sets are. But yeah, no, I think they're probably in similar degrees of readiness where if they showed up out of the gate and they don't look ready, it wouldn't surprise anyone. But if they showed up and they were giving good minutes, no one would be shocked either. They're just kind of floating in that middle range, I think.
So you're guessing more so G League for Podziemski and maybe some minutes here and there for Trayce Jackson Davis.
Yeah, I think so. G like it kind of sounds weird to say, but Pods being in the G League is like their ideal team outcome because that means Steph and CP3 are having long, healthy stretches. They have other guys capable of taking the backup guard minutes. And then you can kind of just give Pods the keys to do whatever the hell he wants in Santa Cruz, which would be awesome. I think it's unlikely that he would be there sort of out of the gate. Maybe there are kind of like stretches where he goes down there just to play a few games now and then when their depth is looking more solid. But like, yeah, I think, it wouldn't surprise me if he starts more games for Santa Cruz than he does for Golden State, or, starts more games in the rotation at least.
Yeah.
And then TJD, I don't think G League might be like if they get an ideal backup big and they're really comfortable with their depth there, but I still think he kind of sticks around just given their overall health concerns. Like Draymond and Looney have both been, I mean, obviously Looney's Iron Man right now, and Draymond's been pretty healthy, but those guys both have like former degenerative conditions that could always come back. So I think that's kind of depth you want to keep around, especially given the experience.
1,000%. 1,000%. I mean, it's gonna be exciting, man. We got some young guys. I think the fun part about it is that the direction of the franchise finally seems like answered. We know kind of what to expect now with where this roster is at this moment. Obviously a lot more work to be done, but hey, free agency starts in a couple. When does free agency start? The July
tomorrow night, right?
July 1st?
I think it's the 30th. I think it's the 30th this year.
30th?
I think so.
30th. All right. Well, then, hey, we are gonna get cracking on the offseason content. Free agency is gonna be fun to follow. But as always, brothers, before we get out of here, anything you guys got on the horizon?
I got a couple articles out for the old Swish theory where I'm always doing my writing. I have one other thing I want to leave everybody with. 35 minutes ago, our one Andre Iguodala, purveyor of the truth, nothing but the truth, everything very literal, tweets, "Pride before the fall is usually how it go." Who the hell knows what that means for the Warriors right now? Whether it means Draymond Green is leaving tomorrow night or that Andre was just feeling bored remains to be seen.
There are reports that Draymond is meeting with Damian Lillard today in Portland. Numerous Portland sources have confirmed that they have heard that a restaurant has been completely reserved by Dame for his meeting with Draymond. So who knows, man? Maybe we'll get some action in terms of what this roster looks like. Maybe Draymond Green is a Blazers. Who knows? I don't think so. I don't think we think so. You're gonna be back here. But Matt, you got anything on the horizon, brother, before we get out of here?
Nothing, man. Nothing at all. Guys, just keep following Chuck, keep following Gautam. Chuck's been putting out, I know some draft stuff. Chuck, I feel like free agent stuff to come. Who knows? I'm not gonna put any pressure on you though. And keep following GSW Fast Break. More pods to come. More Pajemski to come. Nice. Hell yeah, guys. Keep it up. Gautam, sign us off, man.
Yes, sir. Hey, as always, thank you so much, guys, for listening. Keep following, keep subscribing. You guys know the works. Going to be some fun content here at Game 6 Clay throughout the offseason as we kick off the quest for 5, number 5 on the horizon. But until then, guys, we'll see you on the next one. Peace.